Okay, we're live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest, returning guest. His name is Andrew. He operates the 6G Agenda podcast. Check it out. This will be our 8th episode, and this will be the 4th in a series we've done on Michael Aquino, on Mind War. And I think this will be the end, but we're going to kind of finish up with some of the material from Aquino's later works, and also investigate the claims, and some people have said it online, and I've researched it, of either Aquino or the Temple of Set or some of the people in the Bay Area being involved with the Zodiac killings, and this kind of disabusing this notion of a lone nut doing these deaths. And I've had somebody on my show a while back, and I'll put a link to the interview I did, but his name is Jack Myers. He wrote a book called Son of Zodiac, which is a conflation of Son of Sam and Zodiac. But it was how Zodiac and Son of Sam serial murders were meant to usher in the coming of Satan. And the timing is overlaps. It's very similar in the 70s. There's a lot of speculation, like need to say, but the psychological impact of the Zodiac and the Son of Sam are not speculative. Like, I've done shows, many shows. I know Son of Sam. I actually had Berkowitz write me a personal letter. It's on my Patreon. But their intent was to have a massive psychological impact, which it did. Like the Son of Sam and Zodiac, what happened to the public mind and the psyche of the public, and the mind war, if you will, was much more immense than even the crimes, because there were, especially New York at that time, the Son of Sam murders was just like off the charts. There was all kinds of criminality and corruption and stuff going on, but it just captured the public mind. These letters, they're very similar events happening with Son of Sam and Zodiac. Taunting, letters, cryptic information, and really a mind war kind of situation going on. And a lot of dark characters. In the East Coast, it was like the process churches around and all these other groups. And they're around here too. They're around in this kind of Bay Area stuff. So there's a lot of, I think, valid inquiries into that subject of like some of these occultists being involved in an occult series of murders. Zodiac is an occult kind of thing. And then the cryptograms and all this. There's a smiling skeleton in one of the pictures, like a smiley face skeleton, which is really strange. But Andrew can talk more about that. So Andrew, welcome back to the show.
Hey, William, thanks for having me back. Super excited to get into the crazy occult aspect, the spiritual aspect, if you will, dark spiritual aspect of this Mind War series. I saved Mind Star for last because I think that, again, yeah, like you said, it leads into kind of the movement we see outwardly, the satanic movement that we saw. I think the first iteration of the accelerationist movement would be kind of that satanic panic era, right? And so here we are. And yeah, it's just every day we're getting hammered.
Yeah, I mean, we're still under massive psychological operational things probably for decades. Like, it's incredible. Like, I'm 57. It just hasn't stopped, the wars and the psyops and all the stuff. Like, we're really in some kind of weird magical universe, but it goes back to the 60s and 70s, probably with the advent of mass media or the new kind of digital media and the implementation of these guys' ideas. These ideas that were very well thought through, just like Aquino, writing book after book after book and being associated with all these forts. I mean, he's at Huachuca, Fort Bragg, the one in Nebraska, Presidio, which one of the Zodiac crimes happened literally like a stone's throw from the Presidio, which is an old military base. They've like taken it out of the military. It's a great piece of land, but
yeah,
it was
very close.
What's the Air Force base? Offutt? I think it's Offutt that was associated with there. And Aquino's around in all these weird places. But you wanted to tie in kind of some of his older books before we kind of get into the Zodiac killings. Do you want to just reference some of those books first?
Definitely. So, Mind Star, we haven't gotten into yet. That's kind of, I believe, a sales pitch book for his Setian philosophy. And I did want to recap Find Far just as I did a little bit more research on it since the last show we did. I just wanted to recap kind of like the point of what that book was, besides this kind of exoteric view that we got by reading it. It's kind of like a philosophical manifesto. That's why I had a hard time getting through some of the information by the way he spoke about it, because in that book, he's speaking from what he calls a fourth dimensional or a fifth dimensional kind of quantum realm. In other words, if I act on you psychologically and spiritually in ways that you don't perceive, what will happen later, right? So it's exactly what we're talking about with what these psychological operations are supposed to bring on as a result. And so that's what Fine Far is. And it's hard to read because he's speaking from that quantum kind of area of thinking. So I just want to mention there's one area of this I found very interesting. Recently, I've been researching Nick Land and the accelerationist movement. And one thing they say is that to join the hive mind, we have to get rid of our ego, deprogram ourselves. And that's exactly what Aquino says in his books. And they talk about ego dying and how that gets rid of your old, I guess you could call it your old hardware. So you could replace it with this new hardware, since we're talking about technology being involved. But they say that a schizophrenic is actually a post-human actor, somebody who's closer to this next level that they want to get us to. If you take that into consideration, they're manufacturing schizophrenia. I mean, if you think about it, right? That's why weed's legal everywhere. You got the chemical warfare going on with the hormone replacements. And of course, the online radicalization.
Schismogenesis is the big word for it. Schismogenesis.
There we go. Okay, so you're familiar. Yeah. Of course you know about that. Yeah, and so it's this conduit for singularity is the collapsing of the ego. And so when you take that into consideration and then think about the message behind Fine Far, the core message is to separate yourself from the herd mind. So he believes we're already in this herd mind. I don't think we're in it. I think this is an inversion of reality. To get into the herd mentality fully, I think it takes a little bit more of this dissolving of identity, as they teach in the Dark Enlightenment. So he says that most humans operate on an automatic program state, which I think we're getting to now. And that he's promoting this independent consciousness, this isolated intelligence, to become aware of your own existence beyond biology, control structures, etc., to become your own God. Instead of worshiping an external deity, you refine and evolve yourself, and then you create your own meaning. So you don't have a soul until you refine your soul. You're essentially an animal until you refine it. And that's what they believe about most people. And you find that in all these mystery school cults. So I wanted to point that out. Yeah. Yeah. So that was in Fine Far. That's kind of the point of that. He hides it very well in like the way he writes that book. And I don't think I did it justice. So I want to just recap that. So that was about it. But yeah, I think that's interesting how he inverted this dissolving of the ego as being a good thing to become your own God. It's interesting.
It's the old theme. It's the old theme, but it's also how they're creating personality. And that it's almost the same thing between Myatt. We were talking about in the pre-show Myatt, who ran the 09A, which is still like some of the stuff is still going on. 764 and the shootings that happened in San Diego seems to have been part of that occult right wing strain. But Myatt talks about that too, is creating this different personality, and then the public is just a bunch of mundanes or muggles or people on autonomic, they're not fully conscious, but we're going to create our own full consciousness. That's almost like an Ubermensch consciousness. And it's the same. So the term, like you said, it's just terminology, but all the concepts are literally the same. There's like almost like they restate it in different ways or more clever ways, but it's the same concepts. No question about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to Mark Andreessen on Joe Rogan the other day, and I was hearing so many little things that I was like, man, that sounds just like, I mean, some of the stuff I read in Aquino's work or Crowley. So these people are, they're definitely involved in this ideology in the tech world as well, very heavily. So yeah, I just see it rear its head everywhere. But Mindstar is kind of what we'll cover today, though. Mind War is what we started in the beginning. It's the social engineering of the mind. Mindstar is the soul and individual consciousness. Like I said, it's kind of the sales pitch for the Setian philosophy. Fine Far is kind of what I just went over. That's that relationship between consciousness and reality beyond ordinary perception. So we're talking more on the quantum field. So Aquino argues that humans are more like biological machines. He rejects strict materialism and also traditional religion. He just kind of believes that, like we keep saying, you can generate your own immortality by evolving the soul. So if consciousness is more than brain chemistry, then obviously you could cultivate and strengthen it. That's kind of their core belief. So he talks about something called the subjective universe. One of Aquino's concepts is the objective universe, which is like the external world that everyone experiences, and the subjective universe, which is kind of your unique inner reality that you kind of have yourself. So for the soul as an achievement, kind of is what he kind of looks at it as. Traditional Christianity is where you just kind of give yourself over to God, right? There's the soul is kind of assumed into, and it exists automatically. Aquino says that immortality, the soul, it does not exist automatically. You have to strengthen your individual consciousness. This is very similar to Plato, Gnostic traditions, and of course the Egyptian tradition, which as we read into Mindstar, you'll see that the whole thing is based off, Egyptian tradition. I just opened this book to a random page and we have Ba and Ka on it on page 79. Ba is the core emanation, the OU that I was just talking about, the objective universe. And he talks about the manifestation or the gift of Set, the netter. Netter means nature in each conscious entity. So the Ba is what that is inside of each of us. The Ka is the complete mirror image, he says, of all 8 natural and non-natural emanations. So anyway, in other words, the doppelganger, a completely metaphysical remanifestation of yourself, which can exist in place or displace without limit. So this is kind of your eternal self that he talks about that you can kind of transmute into a higher being. So all of it's Setian philosophy, which comes from Egypt. That's my point. It's funny, it always goes back to Egypt, whether you're talking about Tesla, Crowley, Plato, the place that got the teachings from, they admit Atlantis, essentially, right?
Yeah, it always goes back there. Even the Masons, so it all goes back to Egypt.
Every time.
That's why Crowley had to have his great, event in 1904 in Egypt. So it's
right, and
crucial.
he went into the King's Chamber. Am I wrong? I think he was the last one to do it, or the first one to do it since. That one's not ready yet. I'll show you. That's for the end.
Right.
Since Plato, I think he was like the first to do it, right? Crowley.
At least something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and then also you had the Kenneth Anger movie where they had a UFO over the Sphinx, and they said that the gods will come back as this, right? The UFOs.
Right after the ritual, literally after the ritual, and the guy there literally sat on Crowley's knee. Who was on there? He was the director of the film performance, which is totally satanic.
Yeah, and wasn't that called? What was it called? Lucifer Rising, something like that.
Yeah, Lucifer Rising, but the director was Donald Campbell, and wild stuff.
So I'll let while you pull that up, if you are pulling that up. So
what am I trying to get to? I lost track.
No, we're just talking about Kenneth Anger, right? And that Lucifer Rising. I thought you had something you were pulling up. But no, it's no big deal. So he talks about his companion book, Mind War, which included an examination of what he terms thought architecture. Humans are normally both ignorant of and unconcerned with how their thoughts originate and are structured. So they just think, and this is all there is to it, right? So in other words, people are just on autopilot. But that is not all there is to it. The interface between the consciousness and the physical senses is the brain. An electromagnetic chemical machine. Notice he says machine. It processes raw sensory inputs into predetermined recognized patterns for or new experiences, modifying existing patterns, forming bases for new ones. So 95% of the time, this passive process, this is important, comes through the subconscious. So he's saying that the subconscious is where you can actually do the best mind war at. That's what he's getting at there. So then he gets into something called algorithmic thought. So he says that an additional 5% rises to the attention of consciousness to require active consideration, which is algorithmic thought. So only 5% of our actual consciousness, he's saying, gets thought about consciously. Most of it's autopilot. So they would need to access that part of our mind. This is page 17, by the way, if you want to pull up. So this results in deliberate decision-making, and also an assignment of the input to the existing or new pattern into which it did not fit automatically. So in other words, Mind War is a manual for the practical applications in the objective universe so that it can concentrate on identification and control pattern of the algorithmic thought. So we need to control the algorithmic thought, the way you think. So we're going to act on your subconscious all the time to help generate that algorithmic thought in the way we want, right? Interesting. So that's why it's important to have this spiritual and psychological aspect to this understood.
That's what's happening now. Like he predicted what's going on the internet.
Yeah.
This full algorithm just like manipulating the living daylights out of you.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
Even
it's
all the
really
way down
crazy.
to the terminology.
Yeah, right. It's wild.
So he talks about a third element of thought architecture that he briefly speaks about in Mind War, and it's called conceptual thought, also known as the creative or divine. This identifies thinking which is not the product of OU. So this is recognizing and classifying mechanisms. It comes into existence in pure uniqueness, what Plato terms noesis, or enlightened intuition. So it is not a construct of the objective universe, rather it generates its own subjective universe. Now this is getting into the OU and the SU. He's going to shorten it to that a lot. So as each thought is discrete, an individual experiencing such will apprehend numerous unique subjective universe as he goes through his life. So in other words, he's going to have programming instilled in his mind as he experiences certain things. We know this. Your life experience leads you into a certain thought process, just like mine. So he's wondering, how can we use a mirror, essentially, to kind of generate this in a certain way? So if input from the objective universe is not intelligible, it is simply disregarded, and then it's just noise. So these humans can be easily manipulated because they don't want to hear it, and they tune out the information in conflict with their accustomed CSUs, right? So if it makes you uncomfortable, you ignore those inconvenient truths. We see that all the time. That's people actively ignoring their own programming every day, even when people like me and you point it out.
Right. Conditioned responses, those type of things. Yeah. They don't even realize it.
Absolutely.
But they're conditioned. Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the summary in the beginning of what he's saying that this book is going to be about. So as he goes through it, I've got some chapters in here, but I've got my notes. I'll kind of read a little bit more from.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, Aquino discusses different aspects of consciousness and identity. He treats them as kind of interacting components rather than a single entity. So in Egyptian emanations, this chapter, I don't know what page it is for you. I'll have to find it. Let me look at my index. Try to see here. Egypt, I guess it would be on page 35. Yeah, because that's where he gets into the whole Egyptian philosophy. And what's funny about this is he thinks Osiris and Isis and all that, they're the evil ones, and Set is actually the good one, right? So you've got this complete inversion of the Osirian practices. I found that super interesting as well. Because, you think of Seth, like in the Christian Bible, in the conspiracy world, in the seed wars kind of theory, people think that Seth would be like the Adamite, so he'd be actually the good line. And Aquino traces Set to Seth from this Christian story. So in a weird way, a lot of the seed wars stuff would lead you into Aquino's ideology as far as like the Setian philosophy. It could lead there.
Interesting.
It is.
Please continue.
Yeah, so Egyptian history kind of gets into that, but I want to get to, let me see here. Let me find it here. Okay, here we go. So, to the Egyptians, all of nature was alive and direct consequence of the wills of the Neturu, which are these demiurge. That's what I call them. They're just the demiurge, the Gnostic gods. Nature was intelligible, but not just through inanimate, automatic, and general regularities, which could be discovered through the scientific method, but also through connections and association between things and even in events perceived in the human mind. I kind of think of like mycelium with this, right? So you have this interconnected intelligence underground of mycelium and trees. I think that they're kind of speaking to that a little bit, but notice all things are conscious, but not all things have a soul. So therefore that puts us on the level of like trees and like animals. You see how easily that kind of logic can be drawn there? So there's no distinction between reality and appearance. Anything capable of exerting an effect upon the mind thereby existed. So this gets into the whole consciousness creates your reality, not the other way around. Which is important because that leads into this Luciferian philosophy of you make your own reality. That's your truth, not my truth, right? Easily leads into that. So he mentions that he talks about Set here, and he talks about there's no records of the ancient priesthood of Set that survived from the first Osirian dynastic persecution. Later, the more general vandalism of the Christian Islamic eras, we know of it only by its reflection, both in the character of Set, as he is portrayed symbolically and mythologically. So it talks about 3 significant facts that are known about the priesthood of Set, page 47. Together with the priesthood of Horus, it was the oldest of the Egyptian priesthoods. If we date it to the earliest pre-dynastic images of Set found, we can establish an origin of at least 3200 BC. So it's working with the Egyptian on astronomically based records. So Set was the Neter who was different from all the others. Too often, this is simplified into him being an evil slayer of Osiris, hence the personification of evil. Yet any but most of the cursory study of Egyptian religious symbolism is sufficient to dispel this caricature. He was rather a Neter against the Neturu, the entity who symbolized that which is not of nature. So he's the real God, right? Killing the natural gods. So this is a very curious role for a Neter in Egyptian cosmology, to be a presence and force which alone could not be apprehended by perceptions of the natural senses. So this thus represents the nameless thing whose existence we know of by the shadow it casts on many on things apprehended. So this is the life force, right? That's what he's saying. That's what Set represents. So he says, focus our attention on what remains. The very awareness of self is what's left. After you kind of strip away the, what does he say here? Post-Egyptian cultures have generalized the vehicle by which this presence and manifest as the spirit, psyche, or soul. But increased precision is possible. We must subtract from such crudeness that what is life force and focus our attention on what remains, the awareness of self. So yeah, this just gets into the whole Jungian philosophy of the shadow self. That's kind of what that is. And that's awesome, like the parallels you'll find with like the shadow self and then a lot of the Setian philosophy, which is just breaking down your natural instincts that you're born with or that you programmed yourself to have, and kind of uniting yourself with your shadow self so you can be enlightened, right? That's the Jungian philosophy in a nutshell. So yeah, he just kind of talks about religions for a while, and he speaks about the Enlightenment. So a lot of this talks about, he's kind of just like disproving a lot of the religions, a lot of the philosophies, saying how they're just not good enough because it doesn't teach you to venerate your own soul. But this one's interesting here. Who owns your body on page 130? So this talks about the protagonist of the Matrix. So he assumed that he did until he awakened to discover it attached to a variety of parasitic mechanisms. Let's find out what you might be hooked up to. So he's saying that just like Neo was hooked up to the machine, you're hooked up to the state, you're hooked up to the religion, the profession that you have, psychiatry, family, right? So you got to deprogram, detach from yourself, right? These are all different things he talks about here. So indeed, even this is a bit of the broad brush. Biological science estimates that each human body contains about 39 trillion living bacterial cells who've somehow all decided to be you for a while. At least in the metaphysical realm, there are the Egyptians detected and identified only 8 of you. So I don't even know what the hell that means. That's some weird shit. 8 aspects to yourself, like the chakras, I guess. But yeah, so he just talks about how these are our programming mechanisms, right? Our family, profession, our state, religion. They own our body, is what he's saying. Just like Neo was owned by the Matrix that way. So it's funny how the Matrix we know that the Matrix has a lot of that Eastern philosophy of like enlightenment in it. It's funny how he relates that to this, where he's like, that's what you got to do, you know? It just draws that is the satanic philosophy then, right? I mean, it just proves that the New Age Enlightenment era is really led in by guys like this.
Right. That's the satanic worldview, is just kind of almost a dual world, right?
Yep.
Like you live in one reality, I live in another reality. That's why they can do all this hermetic stuff, like get away with things, because they just feel like you're in a different world. It's like the Eloi and the Morlocks or whatever it is from H.G. Wells' Time Machine. Like they're just different entities. They detach themselves from other people. That's exactly what the O9A does.
Yeah, that's what they look at you as, somebody who just like it says here, the taboo of metaphysics, right? Well, there's a taboo around metaphysics. That's why we're able to use metaphysics to manipulate you, because you don't believe in it or whatever. So he talks about ostensibly the antipathy of physics for metaphysics dates to the European Enlightenment. So he gets into that. He talks about the condemnation of science and scientists as a threat to the Holy Bible, admitting God is the creator of the OU would also imply his continued presence and willful discretion to change or ignore its established consistency. If he were ruled out altogether, miracle explanations for mysterious events would be moot. I don't know what kind of point he's making there. Ironically, religionists, he calls them, have never attempted to argue the active presence of God per the existence and enforcement of the OUNL, which is shortened for the objective universe and nature or something. So rather, they would have sought evidence of God's existence and power and claimed miracles such as the parting of the Red Sea, changing a person into a pillar of salt, and Jesus walking on water. The obvious absurdity of such vaudevillian dramatics served only to ridicule religion all the more. So he's saying your beliefs are actually giving us more reason to ridicule you. Oh, Moses parted the Red Sea, huh? Yeah, okay. You know? So it just adds to the joke that they look at religion as. So that's kind of it. He kind of leaves it there for the metaphysical taboo aspect. He gets into symbolism. And then Orwellian unwords on page 143. I have some stuff underlined here. George Orwell realized the subtle yet decisive power of language in his classic novel 1984, in which political heresy is being systematically eliminated by the destruction of words by which to conceive or express it. So it says here, don't you see that the whole aim of newspeak is to narrow the range of thought? In the end, we will make thought crime literally impossible, because there will be no words in which to express it. Every concept that can ever be needed will be expressed by exactly one word. Its meaning rigidly defined, and all its subsidiary meanings rubbed out and forgotten. Already we're not far from that point, but the process will still be continuing long after you and I are dead. This is an excerpt from the book. Every year, fewer and fewer words, and the range of consciousness always a little smaller. Man, that looks like today. LOL, BTW.
It sure does. I mean, the language is being getting coarser and coarser.
Yeah. And he ends with this. The whole climate of thought will be indifferent. In fact, there will be no thought as we understand it now. Orthodoxy means not thinking, not needing to think. Orthodoxy is unconsciousness. So, I mean, that's what, like the whole, like we talked about earlier, the getting people more schizophrenic, or the legalization of, say, weed, or put people on Xanax for their anxiety. These eliminate your thought. Like you have the short videos on social media, right? These are all
antidepressants.
Yep. They all add to it.
You're not actually going to get depressed because you're not going to feel anything. You're going to be totally numb. You're not going to have any highs or lows.
And that's the Soma from Brave New World.
Yeah.
Where, I just talked about that today. Aldous Huxley, speaks a lot about getting rid of the emotional regularities that people have, so they're more conducive to conform to society because they don't actually have emotions. And the way you could do that is numbing their emotions with drugs. And I think they figured out a way to do that environmentally, maybe with autism. I think that's got a big part of that.
Fluoride. I mean, they're coming at us from all angles, man.
Yeah. And that was a big part of my kind of thing, was like the eugenics, I think, are creating autism on purpose, while they're also sequencing the genome so they can purify their DNA that's been, they believe, muddied up over the years, so they can be God Kings again, etc. Right? Because they think, it goes back to this bloodline again, this pure bloodline to the God Kings.
I think you're 100% right, but it's gonna be that division. So it's gonna be for them, but you get nothing.
Yeah,
you are the slave. The slave shall serve. It's the old kind of satanic dictum.
absolutely.
So I think that's where it's at. Like they're the God Kings. Yeah.
Yeah, I see somebody mentioned that the set of the Egyptians is very different than Aquino's set, and that's absolutely true. A lot of his stuff is inversion, right? The adversary becomes the savior. It's the classic inversion of what happened in the garden, as him being the good guy, and we were held in there by a vindictive, evil God in the garden, and we were saved by enlightenment and intellect by coming out. It's all BS.
Yeah, it's not the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's just the tree of knowledge. They all use the same thing.
Yeah.
So they're kept from knowledge, and then Prometheus is your hero.
Mm-hmm.
Stealing fire. It's just all the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they got to add the good and evil trope so they could be like, look, you wouldn't have had any moral servitude if we didn't get you out of that garden. So
there's your Discord. How many people do you have in your Discord? Are you there often?
So we just got that going. Well, we've had it for a while, but we just really started hammering on it. So we've kind of created and curated a timeline of information. If you want to see some topics that we'll be talking about, Discord's a great place. We got a show chat where I'll put posts in there from X, Twitter, in between the weeks when I'm not doing shows, just as topics that you may see me talk about or just interesting things. And so, also I had a show scheduled for this week for the live shows we were doing. So it's a good place just to keep up with what's going on with the show.
I'll put a link in the show notes. I'll put your Discord link on there.
Absolutely. So Orwell's illustration was simplified into a dictionary, which kept shrinking with every edition. The reality is detailed in my companion volume. Mind War is more subtle, but just as persistent. Now, this is interesting, so we can see what they're actually doing. So humans form panoramas of patterns of reality over time, based upon continuous and reinforcing sensory input. This is the programming we've been talking about. So this includes political ideologies, propaganda, designed to instill and preserve desired values and interpretations. So the more sensational and dramatic propaganda targets the conscious perceptions. The far stronger conditioning takes place subconsciously. Now we see that all the time. For example, the term democracy means one thing to a capitalist and another to a socialist or communist. So you could use the dual definitions of things depending on somebody's subjective understanding of that thing. And so two people are actually in two realities, right? So I see that all the time. For instance, where online, somebody may say one, you'll accept, you got two working definitions of the same thing. So we're in two different realities, right? You look at communism as one thing, I look at it as another, right? So socialism's good to you, it's bad to me, that kind of thing. I was trying to think of a good example, but such patterns form the individual's pillars of reality, identified and changed only slowly with considerable difficulty, if at all. But obviously, this Mind War trilogy publication is the educational process and environment in technologically advanced country that's undergoing further change consequent to digital media, which influence both subconscious and conscious thinking in audio-visual processes faster, more intuitively, and less personally deliberative than previously before. So he's right on. He's like, look, social media, he kind of knew what was going to happen with the social media echo chambers, etc. So reality becomes more of a variable than a constant, obviously.
He was 100% right. And the guy had real foresight. There's no question about it.
When
was this published? 77?
No, so this particular is had to be 2013.
Okay, so that's when he came out. When did he die?
Because it was all in the mid 2010s is whenever he came out with all three books. But he had been writing this, I think, for years. 2016, 2018 publication.
Yeah, he's dead in 2019, September 1st.
Yeah, so all this came out right before he died. But I think this was stuff that was on papers that people were reading about, in the, what would you call it? The special access programs. They were learning about this. This was like what they had to study with. I guarantee it. Or something like this.
I think you're right.
So he's got something in here called Sacking the Sack. Mindar proposes to free both atheists and agnostics from the glum He says BBS prospect. I don't really know what BBS. He has a lot of shorthanded words. I don't know what BBS stands for. As discussed previously herein, Egyptians apprehended the objective universe as the physical manifestation of conceiving principles, the neteru, or nature. These were symbolized as animals and therianthropes. And remember that in this context, symbolism is an ideographic representation of a concept beyond more alphabetics or, for that matter, simple pictures. So accordingly, the neteru could just as easily be called forms, like by Pythagoras and Plato, Aesir, like by the ancient Egyptian or Europeans, or the Ainur, A-I-N-U-R, by J.R.R. Tolkien. Can we look up what that is? A-I-N-U-R, J.R.R.
I will.
Tolkien.
I'll do it right now.
I'm really I wonder about this, but these are not cartoon gods as moderns brought up on the soap opera mythologies. So I guess these would be like the little pantheon of gods. Okay. Yeah, I was like, what are these? But yeah, okay, so they call it the forms in Pythagoras and Plato. I didn't know that.
The Ainur are like the early kind of like spiritual beings.
Okay.
It's like the singulars Ainu, Ainur. Holy ones or great ones are the primordial, immortal divine spirits created by Eru Iluvatar as the first beings in existence.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, God makes the little g gods, right? These would be the sons of God in the Bible. The sons of God were made first in Genesis, and then after that, it goes into the garden. A lot of people don't catch that. So he like makes the son of God and has them go take over the earth and lay dominion over the nature, right? Which is interesting because what are these? These are the God, little g gods, the forces of nature. And he has these go out and take over nature. And then in the next chapter, you have Adam get made in the garden. So there's man and the son of God. And then later they mention son of God in Genesis 6, where it says the sons of God came down unto the women, the daughters of men. So you have a differentiation between sons of God and men. And this is why people believe the Nephilim were created with these fallen angels, which is where you get back to the bloodlines that leads into this, right? Crazy. So that would be the Ainur then. That's crazy. They use a lot of Tolkien stuff like Palantir and everything. So that's why I was curious what that was.
Right. I mean, it's...
So the Neteru are pluralized for a more refined interpretation of the objective universe, complexity and interaction between markedly different phenomena. So lazy or simple minds could and did describe the collective principles as a conglomerate God. So he's saying all these are different aspects to the same. So he's saying that people believe in this God, but really it's just nature and you could tap into it. That's really it, you know. So does the OU require a prior imaginative creative agency to bring it into existence is a question. He says, consider its size and complexity, which everywhere functions precisely and harmoniously, a gigantic machine of almost infinite number and variety of working parts. If the mechanism per se is not expressive enough, note that everywhere its components, both severally and in various levels of grouping, have a strong aesthetic aspect. In short, it is not just functional, but beautiful in every sensory. So it is a work of art as well as science. So absent the Neteru, proposing that a machine like this could just appear and function by nothing more than sheer random accident is not just slightly, but overwhelmingly beyond statistical probability. So obviously he's just saying that this world couldn't have been made without these forces.
Right. Wow.
So it needs an external enforcement. That's what Plato teaches. Everything's held together by like this pushing of like this external force. And so the proof of the existence and power of the Neteru is and requires nothing more than the fact of this natural existence that we live in. That's what he's saying. So just the fact we live here proves that they're real. So yeah, very interesting. He talks about extrapolating ignorance. Profane humans generally perceive passive faith-based indoctrination only. They are not expected to actively examine or interrogate such indoctrination. Indeed, are usually reprimanded or punished if they do. So accordingly, they assume themselves to be defined and manifest by their own physical bodies and senses. If they think about death, which most avoid doing, they imagine only the blind fear and thus they are easy prey for these profane religions. So these religions are just used to control these people that don't know how to process their own reality or question their own existence because they're scared. And that's kind of what that's what he sums it up to.
Right.
So
That's
now,
also the Masonic term for kind of like the hoi polloi is profane. He's absorbing that terminology.
Oh yeah, right into the Masonic kind of vocabulary there.
Yeah.
So not only do religions have no power or authority to decree such fates, but their private and public documents make it clear that they have not the slightest idea about actual afterlife or even how to discover it. So yeah, it gets into reincarnation, necromancy, necromancy. Let's look at this because this is crazy. Ritual summoning of the departed has been an interest of this is on page 154. Has been an interest of ceremonial magicians, medium scientists, and seancetists since antiquity. Most of this can be written off as superstitions, delusion, or fraudulent. But if thought is indeed a field phenomenon and the MS is immortal, there's no reason to assume that the communications of the ESP type is impossible. So while full inquiry so pretty much mediumship has to be real, is what he's posing here. So as discussed in Mind War, deliberate concentration and energizing of both conscious and subconscious thought requires reinforcement by and non-distraction of the body's physical senses. So we're talking yoga, meditation, things like that. So selection, construction, and decoration of enhancing your externalities. So anyway, beyond its range of physical sense, the human body can both detect and react to a wide range of waves and fields within the possibly beyond the electromagnetic spectrum. So he talks about what would have been needed was for the tank to be surrounded by a Faraday cage. He's talking about Dr. Lilly's tanks did not specifically identify or reduce psychological controls from mind wars. I don't know what Lilly's tank was. It must have been, I wonder if it was one of those sensory deprivation tanks. Because I feel like those almost make you more susceptible in a weird way. So the re-emanation of dead bodies minus the soul of once. So he talks about the zombification of people. I don't know if you saw this, but Trump literally, I only brought that up because Trump literally just said that they can bring people back from the dead. Like they have some medication that can do that. Did you see that?
No, missed that. Nope.
Didn't
see that.
I posted it on my Discord. You check it out. But so it's weird because I was like, well, I think the only way you could do that is like self-assembling nanoparticles to create a digital nervous system that can reanimate dead bodies, right? That makes sense. Peter Thiel has talked about bringing people back from the dead as well. It just gets into this weird biblical resurrection of the dead. I mean, I really do think they're trying to manufacture revelation.
I think you're right. It's their blueprint. Crowley loved revelation. He thought he was going to do it, So.
Yeah. He talks about 2001: A Space Odyssey in here as well. Monolithic anamnesis. That's why he's talking about it, because monolith and what it represents. You're familiar with what the monolith represents, right? It's that, yeah. Black cube bringing knowledge. It's the classic. It's
the Ashlar. Michael Hoffman talks about it in Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare, which is another book we should go through because it's very similar to kind of what Aquino writes about. But it's like an Ashlar of Masonry. It represents all this stuff, but the one that they use in 2001 is 11 feet tall. Its dimensions are 93. Like it's full on like occult numerology. It's not explained in the film though. But if you read the book is the key by Arthur C. Clarke to the film, and they expose a lot of the occultism.
I think I've heard of that. Yeah, the key. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Worth your time.
Yeah, David Bowman was represented. So he's talking about a star child here. And then he talks about 2001 starred a flat black golden rectangular monolith, the missing link, power to catalyze successive stages of human consciousness to evolution. So in other words, like it's the thing that's going to bring us to the next stage of man, from instinctive animal to Homo sapien in prehistory, and then from intelligent incarnation to pure mentality or star child. Now, Bill Cooper did a great job with the 2001 Space Odyssey. He broke that down in episode 1 of his Mystery Babylon series. And he talks about how the only one that makes it into the future is that like synthetic biological man called Hal. You remember that?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So Hal is one letter away from IBM, he pointed out. Like each letter is one letter away from
IBM, right? So it's
yeah.
HI-AB.
And then LM.
LM, yeah.
That's crazy, dude. He pointed that out, and I just thought that was interesting because that's exactly what we're talking about. Is this synthetic biological man is the only one that can go into the future as the next stage of the Ubermensch. So that works. As we're talking about that, what ushers that in would be some of these crazy sacrifices, these satanic killings, this accelerationist kind of stuff we talked about in the beginning, like the San Diego killing shooters that called themselves accelerationists, or like the Zodiac killings back in the 60s. So we can get into some of that if you'd like.
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah. Let's do that. I mean,
because, yeah, that's most of Mindstar. Again, it's just more Luciferian doctrine. It's a sales pitch to follow his version of Luciferianism, Satanism, whatever you want to call it. But it just mirrors everything we always read, right? It's just all these guys just rebrand their ideologies. Right. And they act like they have some special version of it.
They have to make themselves special if they're going to lead the other people in their own version of a cult. Yeah. So they want to become leaders. They probably, I mean, that seems to be what happened to Aquino, is that he didn't like playing second or third fiddle to LaVey or anybody else. So, yeah. I mean, it's like these branches break off and all this other stuff.
Yeah, Maestro in the chat mentioned how the sensory touch weird the MK Ultra based sensory deprivation techniques. Now rich folks are paying to have the same torture experiences. I think that gets back to what we talked about, which is ego death in order to merge with this hive mind. A lot of these, rich people like Joe Rogan, he's full in on this new man. He sure wants his ego death. He talks about that all the time. AI presidents, he talks about that. So they UFO, want that.
Disclosure, the whole suite. He is a new age promoter. There's nothing, it can't be denied. As long as is like so close to the Epstein network, it's hard to believe he's not part of it. For me, there's just all the people are there. I know, and they're all into all this stuff too. They're not. Like,
I know this guy did a great. This guy did a great deep dive of like the UFC and Dana White's connection with like Epstein and the Ari guy that owns the UFC and all that.
Ari Emanuel, yeah,
insane.
There's other ones too for Tita, and it just shows that a lot of these guys were mixed up in the network. They really were. They were. It was just like fish swimming in the Epstein ocean. And it's almost like who in the elite is not involved with Epstein, because they all seem to just be around him or talking to him. And
well, I think it gets back to like to enter into this new age, you have to be under this ideology, and all these people are just exemplifying that they're involved. They adhere to the ideology. They are all in.
It's Mystery Babylon. That's what
exactly. That's what.
And that's the whole thing, is that it's a mystery to the outsiders, but they're inside type people. That's probably why Rogan had his career the way it was, is that he was going to be the facilitator between the masses, the profane, and all these other people's ideas. Like, just incredible stuff. Yeah.
First deal by Disney. I mean, that's telling. It's so funny. Like, he'll even say on his show, like, could you imagine if this was some long game to get people to manipulate people a certain way? And I'm like, could you imagine actually saying that out loud?
Right. No, but I mean, if you go back through it, so many of the journalists who are downplaying the Epstein stuff are on his show too. So it's not even the Epstein kind of network, but I can make a list of all these people. Like, yeah, it's not important, or you guys are overstating this.
He's a construct. That's the new one. Eric Weinstein. Epstein's a construct. What are you talking about? He's a construct. He still.
That's what Weinstein said. He said he's a construct. Oh, wow.
Yeah. He said he's like, I said he was a construct before anybody would, and now everybody's saying that. I'm like, nobody's saying he's a construct. Like, you guys are just making your own reality here.
Yeah, they sure are. He's not a construct, man. He was a longtime operator, and I've been researching some of his ties to art and the films. Like, he got entree into some of these premieres. Like oftentimes there'll be a public premiere, let's say in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, but it'll be a weekend premiere, like a week of premieres, and there'll be private premieres for the actors and the producers and their close friends. And Epstein would be invited to these. And what I mean, so like some of these major films that you've watched, he would go to these premieres with like first-rate to AAA actors.
Oh yeah.
Wow. One that I read recently was this is after his conviction too. So one of the ones I read recently was Les Miserables, and it was pretty big production. I don't know. I mean, it had first-rate actors, right? It had Hugh Jackman and some of these other people, and there's a guest list, and it's just like elite, first-rate actor, producer Jeffrey Epstein and friend.
Dang.
Like they knew, they're just covering it up. It's just like when Epstein, like there's so many people who know this stuff and they're not coming forward.
Oh yeah, I mean, I saw, I'm sure you've seen this by now. There's like a clip from a 1987 episode for a TV show that talked about, we got the Epstein files, and they're like in a courtroom or something, and almost like predictive programming for what's going on today.
Yeah, no, they knew what he was doing for a long time. His stuff goes back to probably 1980. I don't know how much sex trafficking, but his kind of like the various stuff, Iran-Contra, Khashoggi, these are all real stuff, Tower Financial. He was brought in at a very early age in his late 20s and 30s or something.
Well, you mentioned Hollywood. Did we talk about, who his dad might have been?
No.
So
maybe you talked about that Epstein guy who's the writer, right?
So, well, you had Leslie Epstein, right? Who's possibly Epstein's brother, because of his dad, who was Philip S. Epstein. I believe his name was Philip S. Epstein or something. And he was okay, so let me back up. There's two brothers, both Epsteins, move here from Germany around World War II, maybe even World War I. But they moved over here. They go over to Hollywood. The Warner brothers, one of them testifies during this huge political scandal in Hollywood where they were saying that communism was trying to infiltrate Hollywood. One of the Epsteins is implicated, Philip Epstein. He dies of a heart attack right after being implicated. The same year, a man named Seymour Epstein pops up in the East Coast and gets married. The last thing in his history was he went to war in 1940. So 1952 is the next thing you pick up on that guy's history, and he's now getting married the same year that this guy died of a heart attack. This guy, Seymour Epstein, moves to Coney Island, and he has Jeffrey Epstein. The whole idea is that he stole the identity of Seymour Epstein, faked his death because he's being implicated on the communist infiltration in Hollywood, which would make sense why a schmo like Epstein, as Steve Bannon calls him, would make it into the Trilateral Commission, working with the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and being plugged into Hollywood. Makes sense. And then, of course, his brother, Leslie Epstein, what does he write? King of the Jews, which is the book that he had in the files, right? So it's something he had in his possession. Right. They look just alike, dude. They look like brothers.
Right.
I think it's undeniable. I think that most likely that's what happened, or very close to what happened.
He had that kind of like, so nepotistic thing about Epstein. There was something about him, like he got entree into places that were weird.
Yeah,
like he got into Dalton teaching, but I don't think he ever completed college. Like that would be the predicate to get a job in that environment.
Well, I believe that Barr's dad, who got him into Dalton, was in the OSS. Am I wrong?
There's no question about it. Yeah.
But if we know that those guys came from Germany and brought communism over here, I believe that these guys there's some connection with the OSS and these communistic Jews, if you want to call them that, right? Or these Zionists, whatever you want to call them, that came over here and did this. So I think there's a big connection there. And then he starts a shoe cobbler place and whatever it was in Coney Island just to kind of look normal. But I think there's a lot to that.
There's so much under the surface of Epstein that there's probably stuff under the surface of his dad. Like it may not be the full story. Like it just may be almost like an intel legend. Like Hillary Clinton's mom, her that's not her maiden name. It's not Clinton. It's her dad. But she presents him as like, oh, he's just a simple It presents him to the left, as a simple like drape maker, but he may have had a front business, but he was all mobbed up. Her dad is
Oh yeah,
totally mobbed up,
absolutely. I mean, yeah,
according to people.
we pretty much got Meyer Lansky in the White House right now. So I mean,
Yeah. So I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise.
yeah,
Like these guys have this kind of cover language, but there's so much. I mean, the Epstein files revealed that we didn't know, the public didn't know that much about Epstein, but there's a lot to know.
yeah, there is.
He had the most Byzantine financials that I've ever seen on a person, with so many trusts and wills and instruments and tax havens and just crazy. Like it was, I don't know if anybody's even tried to break through and understand where all this money was coming from. It was moving around in strange ways. Money was coming in from places nobody knew where it was coming from.
Well, he had like his own version of fractional banking that he had going on, where he would sell somebody a bond for 10,000, and then they'd have to give him like 100,000 back. And so he had so many of these out that at one point he cashed them all in at once. And I believe there's a theory that led to the financial crisis in 08, because of how much money he literally had invested in that system there. I forgot what it was called, but it was like his own version of fractional reserve banking that he was doing through bonds and things like that with people.
Interesting. I mean, it's just off the charts what he was doing. I mean, he was brought in by this guy, Abe Greenberg, into Bear Stearns, which was kind of like the upstart finance guys. And he was put in some special thing to do tax havens. Yeah. So like, how do you get this right away before you're 30? Like you have to know somebody and have.
Oh yeah. Insane.
Like you didn't earn your bones as much. He was made partner within 4 years at Bear Stearns.
That's insane.
I don't think he's that bright. He's smart, but I don't think he's like a genius level type person.
No, yeah, he understands money though. That's for sure. Did. Yeah. So somebody said the Zodiac movie was directed by David Fincher of the Fight Club. Oh wow, I didn't know that he was connected.
That is true. That is true. And the movie features these two guys who looked into it, Tosky, and I forgot the other guy's name. And they follow their life. It's a long movie, but they were trying to find stuff. I mean, they were really interesting guys in themselves. If anybody knows where their papers are, let me know. It's Toschi was T-O, it's Italian, Toschi. But they studied a lot of different people, and they were in the whole scene. Like they knew all this occultism and all that stuff that was going on in San Francisco.
Mm. Well, I've got, whenever you're ready, speaking of that, I've got this share screen ready for some bookmarks I have on X from just a little bit of rudimentary research I was doing about the Zodiac killer and Michael Aquino.
Well, let me bring this up. This is an interview that I've done with this author, Jack Myers, which I mentioned at the intro. And this is the book, Son of Zodiac. It's really interesting. I highly recommend. This is from my Kindle, but I'll republish this. I'll republish this interview I did. But it has I think it's interesting, but it has all the usual suspects: Crowley, Process, Church of Satan, Colonel.
Mm-hmm.
This is
crazy.
There he is in there. So our subject matter today.
Wow. I mean, dude, the time dates line up perfectly. Like he went to San Francisco from Fort Bragg in 68, 69, joined the Church of Satan like that year. And that's like the first murder you get. Stone's throw away, as you said, from Church of Satan, and also from Presidio.
Right. And there was a huge Presidio scandal, I think in 1980. So after these events, all this stuff came out. He was investigated. I did a show on it. Like it was a real federal investigation. It wasn't a joke. And I guess they didn't compile enough evidence, but yeah, it was like for real. Like it was a real investigation about child abuse. And it's part of the satanic panic thing, but these guys are Satanists. Like, whoa.
Absolutely. He met him, I'm sure you know this, at the Rosemary's Baby screening.
Right. So he met LaVey in 60s or something there. Where was it screened?
I can't recall. I forgot because I just saw it the other day where it was, but it was, yeah, because that's kind of where I think the Roman Polanski kind of connection kind of pops up there with Sharon Tate, Charles Manson, Process Church. It's kind of like a weird trilateral connection there. And then, honestly, just to add some credence to that, Roman Polanski can't even come back to America because, what he did to like some 13-year-old child or something.
There were two. Like he was
Yeah.
actually convicted. He skipped before he got sentenced, is my understanding.
And somebody, who was it? Oh man, somebody was just trying to get, was advocating to get him back here. Who was it, dude? I can't remember.
Probably Trump. Who knows?
It was either it was him or like Kubrick or like somebody else like that, where it was like a weird name where I was like, what? Whenever he was alive, maybe. But
there's a tie of Polanski's attorneys to Epstein. They're in the files. Like
insane.
It's just the overlap is off the charts. And that was kind of Polanski's thing. Like he moved to France and apparently abuses girls over there as well. There's a whole like series of research about the girls that he's been around in France.
Really?
Young girls, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. But here's Aquino. 71, a year after serving in Vietnam, Aquino was already ranked as Magister Caverns at level 4 within the Church of Satan hierarchy. He was also editor of its publication, The Cloven Hoof, and would later sit on its governing council of 9. In 1973, Aquino rose to the previously unattained rank of Magister Templi. He had become, by all accounts, LaVey's right-hand man, and Aquino saw his life mission as one of destroying the influence of conventional religion in human affairs.
And we saw an excerpt of that in Mindar, where he's kind of saying religion has no power. They don't even know anything about the afterlife or how to experience anything. I remembered. Guillermo del Toro. He advocated for Roman Polanski to come back.
Wow.
And he created the Frankenstein movie. He's been on Joe Rogan a few times. So we've got this connection popping up again.
Wow.
Harrison Ford, Woody Allen, amongst others, also wanted him to come and be, come back without being in trouble. So that's a little telling.
Wow. And there's like, there's him making his connection, Aquino, to Crowley. So Crowley, Aeon of Horus, 1966. LaVey, Aeon of Satan, 1975. Aquino, Aeon of Set, 1975.
Wow.
That's for the Book of Coming Forth by Night. So they're always trying to tie themselves back to Crowley.
Yeah.
Almost to any, and even LaVey.
Yeah. And MAGA, I mean, look at, the White House, they repost Drake's album, the 666 hand sign, right?
Wow.
But who's Drake signed to? He signed to OVO, like OTO. It's like one letter off from OTO. And it's, a lot of weird Crowley stuff that goes on with MAGA in general. So they were just posting 007 the other day, just to add to it.
Wow.
So
there he is. He's this guy, Myers covered Mindar. So it's in this book too, Son of Zodiac.
Wow. Dr. Aquino settled into a life of teaching political science at the Golden Gate. I did read this. I found this online and was reading this the other day while I was trying to. This is the only piece of information you can find some good research on regarding him and the Zodiac killings.
And this is what I covered too, is like on this other thing about Aquino. A federal grand jury spent 10 months in San Francisco investigating the allegations of 100 children. And 60 youngers had been bruised at Presidio. And that was one of the killings of the guy in the cab. And one of the Zodiac killings was killed like 2 blocks. I mentioned that earlier.
Oh, Guillermo del Toro was not on Rogan, but Rogan talks about his movies a lot. He just loves his movies. Yeah, I did misspoke there. He hasn't been on it, but Rogan loves his movies. Yeah, but he definitely was the one who advocated for him to come back. Crazy.
Let me see if I can get this thing up higher.
But speaking of Tarantino, I mean, he made the movie about the Charles Manson killings, a crazy rendition of that too.
Right.
I wonder how much he knows about the background of Roman Polanski. Like, he's in that world. You know what I mean?
World, yeah,
he's got to know.
Yeah, he's got to know. I don't think he can play that dumb. Can I bring up your thing now?
Yeah. Here, let me pull it back up here. I'm ready. All right.
Yeah, that's Son of Zodiac. Check out that book. It's good.
Yeah, I will.
And I'll repost that interview I did.
So Michael Aquino, there's a picture of him and a sketch of the Zodiac killer next to his face. It looks very similar. I don't know if he ever wore glasses, but it looks very similar. It almost looks like, I pointed this out the other day, it almost looks like the guy who robbed the plane and jumped off too.
Right. It's
God, what's his name? DB Cooper. He kind of looks like DB Cooper as well. If you look at the sketch of him, it looks just like Aquino. Wouldn't that be crazy?
It would be crazy.
Guy's just involved in everything. I don't know anything about like if that's the case. I'm just thinking about how wild that. I wouldn't be surprised though. It talks about figure in black, has a real name, and is Michael Aquino. As the story goes, a Satan-pumping Vietnam veteran, MK Ultra programmer for the CIA, was the person who was in charge of not only the finders. Wow, I don't know if that's true, but that'd be crazy too. But also terrorized kids at his home for the help of his wife, Lilith Aquino. The Presidio case is what they're referring to. Is able to control the resources of the NSA, which includes but is not limited to phone and email tappings, computer monitoring, satellite surveillance, and may have control over ELF and electromagnetic brain manipulation. This is from the MI Patriots Network. I don't know how legit that is, but you can find this link and kind of read more about it here as well.
Tolkien Study says Tarantino said we should bring Polanski back on Stern. So
there you go. Wow. So this person kind of goes into it a little bit.
I've heard of Douglas Dwayne Dietrich. I know he said he worked under Aquino. Like I've seen that guy. He's independent. I don't know if he's still around. Do you know if he's still around, Jimmy? If Dwayne Dietrich is around, because I vaguely, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, remember hearing his name. I don't know if he's on social media or what.
So it talks about 9 months after the phone call from the Zodiac saying body would be found in a church, the body of Arliss Perry is found. And it kind of gets
74 too, so that the timing is incredible.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's got all the different. That's Crowley's birthday, and it's night in a church and all this stuff.
So it says I have another reason why it is Michael Aquino due to the Arliss Perry murder. Caller named Zodiac says a body will be found in a church. Apparently, it was in reference to Daly City or San Mateo, which is very close to where he was, I believe. And then,
well, there's actually an Aquino connection to Stanford because his mom went there.
Wow, the Stanford Research Institute?
No, it's Stanford, the university.
Okay.
So back when it was like a literal farm, like now it's like this prestigious international university. It wasn't always like that. It got more and more prestigious over time. But back when she went, it was literally that center campus. It was like a square, a quad, and the church is in the center there.
Wow.
And that was pretty much it. It was on a farm. It was on the Stanford family's farm.
Literally, you have the connection with his mom right there then, because that's where this chick was found, the Stanford Memorial Church, right?
Right.
That's insane.
It's totally insane. It's a really nice church. I used to live there, so I used to.
Oh, really?
I buy there all the time, yeah.
That's cool. Do you live in California now, or are you in?
Yeah, I'm in LA.
Okay.
I actually knew the story of Arliss Perry. She worked as a phone person for a law firm, and I knew the man. I grew up with the manager of that law office who knew the whole. So when I think it was Blaise Valentine and Klein at the time or something like that, or Blaise Valentine, she worked there. I knew those people.
That's insane.
I knew Blaise, and it was just kind of like her death was kind of, and I've written about this. There's an article about this, the murder of Arliss Perry I've written, but her death was kind of like a spectral thing around that area. Back when Palo Alto was much a smaller town, now it's like internationally known, but back before Silicon Valley, it was kind of like, what the hell happened? Well, we just don't want to talk about it. It's too dark. It's never solved. It's never solved. They had the story, the Sons of Sam or whatever, but that guy killed himself. So the guy who was ends up in that documentary, who was the security guard, it's never a proper trial. It's all very strange.
Yeah, that's how it goes too, because that's what happened with Aquino and the Presidio case. Throw it out. Yeah. So you know about this, obviously, the book Ultimate Evil, Son of Sam claims a satanic network.
Sorry to interrupt again, but the Ultimate Evil starts with the death of Arliss Perry. That's the way the book is bookended. So what the heck happened in this thing in Berkowitz, who I said earlier sent me, and you can check my Patreon. He talked to me. Who I've done shows on Berkowitz too, like Mind of a Murder. But he was saying something like he knew something about it, but he's not that voluble about this stuff. He seems to, I mean, he was stabbed. Literally, you can see the scar on his throat, like somebody tried to kill him in jail, like really off him, like he had like 60 stitches or something.
And he's out now, isn't he? Like alive?
No. He's never getting out.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I thought
He's alive. He became he was actually a practicing Satanist all the way up until 1988. So even after the and this is his own admission. He was he would do rituals and all this stuff.
When did the Ultimate Evil come out?
70s, I think, or 70 or 80s. I don't remember.
Really?
But then he had it, like he became a born again Christian. He carries around a Bible. He renounced all that other earlier stuff.
I mean, he literally says that the satanic networks connect, Manson case and the Perry murder case. But that's crazy he would say that while he's still a Satanist. It's wild. So that must be the connection with, because obviously he says that, so there's not much you can find solid, smoking gun wise.
He was part of a smaller satanic group that kind of melded in with the Process Church, according to him. Like he was on some group of like 21, and then they got even bigger, and they hung out at that park, the occult park, which is somebody probably in the chat remembers the name of it. It was in the Bronx. They would do rituals.
I can't recall, but I know what you're talking. I remember hearing about that one.
And the guy was like involved in creating the Federal Reserve. It was his park, and it was a cult, man. There was all kinds of occult statuaries and stuff there.
Well, that's crazy because you got Kirk's family who's also involved with that, like, designing the dollars and stuff like that, working with the Fed, and then also that weird connection where you see the picture of them in Aquino's house.
It's just crazy stuff. Unbelievable.
So this kind of there's another one here. I'm not going to click on it, but 92 Dave Emery show where he reads Harry Martin Zodiac Killer conspiracy article. It talks about Temple of Set, Aquino, Hillside Strangler. That's a good one to check out. Harry Martin Zodiac Killer conspiracy, read by Dave Emroy. So that might be a good one to check out. And then, of course, the insignias and the stuff he uses, very similar to like the 09A, and then you have the Zodiac Killer insignias. So that's kind of the connection with like all this weird, the symbols and the cryptography style, approach. And then, of course, he was in the Order of the Trapezoid, which had a lot of astrological zodiac kind of symbology involved with it as well. And
yeah, I've done a lot of stuff on Process Church, guys. I wrote about the Process Church and Children of the Beast. I've done all this Perry stuff. I've done shows on that with Todd Wood. And then Dana Dudah's done a lot of stuff on the modern Process Church. Yeah,
I know that the David McGowan Program to Kill stuff, I think that might have been you that I heard about it from. And I mean, I'm so glad I couldn't have done that Jesper series without reading that and understanding that first. And of course, even the Epstein situation, like you can't understand Epstein until you go read David McGowan's book, describing this satanic pedophile group, elite group that permeates the intelligence services, these cults and everywhere. And it's, with the sex trafficking, etc. And it really just lays a lot of credence to this idea that it's a multi-generational society of people.
It's pretty crazy. When you look where he lived in Central Park, like he was Central Park East, but like you could walk straight west and like go by the carousel that's at the end of Catcher in the Rye and then walk over to Dakota, which is where Rosemary's Baby took place. Like it's
Catcher in the Rye, Rosemary's Baby, Aleister Crowley's house.
Pull up a map.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's the hub right there in New York.
Sure is.
And that's by Hudson, right? Over there? Because I know that's where Crowley was. He was by Hudson.
He was on One Washington Place.
Okay.
So he's definitely South Manhattan. At a very swanky hotel, of course. And that's where he had the Alamantra working, where he saw the gray alien. He wrote about the gray alien before anything, man. Really wild.
So tell me a little bit about the Coming Forth by Night. I haven't had a lot of study into that. I'm curious about what that, like, give me a little summation of what that is. Obviously, as we went through Mind Wars, Find Far, Mind Star, just kind of gotten into the mind of like what he thinks and his ideology. What does that kind of get into?
Well, I wouldn't. It's 70. The Dakota's on 72 West, and Epstein's on 71 East. So literally, you could just like
That's insane.
literally almost go straight west from his place and walk into the Dakota, strawberry fields, and all this other stuff. Like sequences where's the carousel? Yeah, I gotta find this anyway. I can't. It's been a while since I've read. I'll have to reread Coming Forth. The original Coming Forth by Night is a very long book. It's not like some kind of pamphlet or something like that.
It's like his satanic Bible, essentially.
Bible.
That's what I thought. Okay. Well, judging by how he writes off these books, I'm sure it's not an easy breakdown. You know what I mean?
He believed that it was a channeled book, so that puts him into kind of like this whole sphere of like Crowley channeling the Book of the Law from AWAS.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that pretty well, but I'd have to do another show on that Coming Forth by Night thing.
Yeah, but we should. I'll look into it too. We should. Why not? Kind of a natural segue into that sometime.
The park that I'm thinking about, I'll find it right here. It's up north. It's called
Aquino is in the Zodiac movie with Gyllenhaal. Is that true?
Gyllenhaal? I don't know.
Or Gyllenhaal? Is that true? Get out of here. His doppelganger is the man with the basement. Get out of here. Is Michael Aquino in there? Or are you saying that it looks like
is it a depiction of Michael Aquino or in there?
I'm going to look it up.
Van Cortlandt Park was one of the places that they would go to, but there was another one called, I think, overlooked the river.
It must have been a depiction of him or something. I guess because they're saying it's the person with the basement. I'd have to go back and watch that movie.
I guess I'll have to watch Zodiac again.
It's been a while, but yeah, I mean, it's a long movie too. There's a lot there.
The one of the interesting things about Toshi is that they keyed into one of these like hardcore hypnotists as a possible guy who was the Zodiac, and that is William Joseph Bryan Jr. They actually had files on that guy, and he's like totally an MK Ultra doctor, man. He's all over the place.
Yeah. You're talking about the big bald guy, right? That they
300-pound huge dude.
Yeah. And you've seen the like documentary recently that came out about how they think they solved who the Zodiac killer was, just to kind of nip it in the butt.
Yeah.
Just some random guy that like a family guy.
It made a good show, yeah.
Yeah.
But the guy had all kinds of elements to him that looked like he was it, but I don't know.
Sorry.
There's other killings. Like I've done shows around the Zodiac, and like some people like put the body count at over 30 people, like could be associated. So some of these, there could be other, other victims that weren't put in the original pool.
Here, I've got this basement scene they were talking about. If you want to like round it out with
I don't want to play anything on this, not on YouTube.
Oh, okay. No worries.
It's just that I have so much Hunter Meyer Park is the name of the park. I just have so much problem with YouTube. They'll drop had background music. I showed this video of this girl, and the background music was playing in the background. They said it was a copyright.
I know. I'm quick about that because, dude, they'll play an advertisement with music on it. And I'm like, before I can even get to the video that I'm trying to show, they'll play an advertisement. It's like got music. You got to be vigilant with that stuff. Sure, all right, yeah, no worries. But yeah, check out the basement scene with Zodiac Killer. They got a clip of it, and that could. Our buddy in the chat says that that depicts Aquino.
Interesting. Let's see. Satanist boot job near town. Just authors have on display. How does that fit into the Luigi Big Farmer hit side? He went into Central Park and left his backpack at the carousel at the place where Catcher in the Rye finished.
Insane.
Yeah, it's totally unbelievable. Like he did something. He shot the guy out. I think it was south of the park. It was he went north into the park, but I think he did something on like 7th Street or something like that. And you have to remember, Fifth Avenue is like this really tony part of Manhattan. And that's what it's like, really one of the nicer things. That's where Jeff lived. It's 5th and 71st. Like the upper level stuff. So
That's insane.
Yeah.
A natural segue out of this as we kind of wrap it up soon. Alexander Dugan. I mentioned him to you, and you do really great research. I know you got a lot on your plate, obviously already, but anytime you get a chance, check out Dugan. I'd love to do a show with you on it, but it's interesting.
Yeah, sure.
There's some stuff I have here written down. I've got my analog notes, my schizo notes here.
Brian is rumored, according to Todd Wood, Brian is rumored to be the Grand Chingon, who they keep talking about, that Manson talked about. And Manson knew hypnotism, and there's actually hypnotism in the Zodiac case. They hypnotized one of the victims, not the victims, but one of the witnesses. Much like one of the interesting things about Brian, that he was the doctor for the main Kasabian. So he's attached to Manson and Zodiac. Like, you cannot buy this stuff. I'll bring up this article. Yeah. It'll blow your mind.
So they're hypnotizing fake memories into there, so that way you can make sure it doesn't tie back to Aquino. Maybe, I don't know. Just conjecture.
You just don't know. Like, that's the whole thing. Is like they're injecting these insiders, much like Jolly West, like very sus people.
Yeah, and we know they can replace memories. I mean, that's the thing. It's been proven through hypnosis. But back then they were doing it, under.
And they can convince you you're wrong. They do these techniques. The FBI does it. All this stuff.
Yeah, this article. Stalking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's real. If anybody could find this article, this full article, I'm going to try to find it myself.
Oh, yeah, send me that sometime. I haven't found
this. This is from January 11th, 1970. National Tattler. I didn't even know this thing existed, but it's page 15. But Super Secret Black Magic Den also linked to Zodiac Killer. And these are the pictures of these other people. I don't even know, but they're in the Tate murders. But Nancy Pittman, Diana Bluestein, and Rachel Morse. They were members of a desert tribe, but not implicated in it. These are like unknown people. But on the bottom there is Kasabian, and her attorney is was associated or was William Jennings Bryan. And here's even the article even mentions him in this thing. It says, under indictment for Los Angeles murders, say they were hypnotized by Manson when he ordered them to kill everyone in the Tate and LaBianca homes. Dr. William Jennings Bryan, they got it wrong. It's William Joseph Bryan. It's a common mistake. Dr. William Jennings Bryan III, Los Angeles hypnotist and president of the American Institute of Hypnosis, contends, however, that Manson's followers were brainwashed through a combination of drugs, erotic rituals, and cult leaders' powerful and persuasive personality, and months of virtual isolation from normal society. Dr. Bryan has been retained by attorneys for Miss Atkins. So she's a full Satanist. Like, Atkins is she is a member of the Church of Satan.
That's insane.
Pictures of her dancing and stuff. Retained by attorneys for Miss Atkins to testify on her behalf when the family comes to trial next February. He's also involved with Kasabian. He's right there on the bottom right. It's so crazy.
And the Process Church is literally located in Haight-Ashbury, where the Haight-Ashbury clinic was for the MK Ultra stuff. It's crazy. And
there's literally like Jolly West is running some kind of hippie commune house there.
Yep.
It's crazy. A desire to attain Manson's level of mysticism, on which he claimed to be both Satan and God, may have been inspired his followers to emulate his teachings, Mustaine said. Yeah, so killing a ritual. 14 process members who've been in the United States illegally since early last year fled to London when Scotland Yard began investigating a kidnapping case in which the victim was tortured with electroshock. Oh, very nice. So there's a lot of stuff the researchers have like overlooked on this stuff, but yeah. This article, again, National Tattler. I don't know if it's on newspapers.com. I'll check once I'm done with this.
And so was it confirmed that Sharon Tate was a part of the Process Church? Is that like a thing that was confirmed? Because I thought Dave McGowan in his book talked about satanic imagery, like almost like they were doing witchcraft at the Sharon Tate house. Like before the murder, that didn't have anything to do with the Manson stuff. Like they were involved in it. separate from the Manson murder? Is that something real there that I read? Or
There's no doubt that she was kind of in the orbit of which the movie she was doing was Light of the Eye or something like that, the Eye of the Thing, where she literally plays a witch and she repeats a lot of stuff. And she is pictured like the two main Wiccan strains after Crowley are called Gardnerian and Alexandrian or Alexanders. But there's these two kind of main branches. And she's pictured with that guy, this kind of main witch who said he got his information from Crowley. It's
Did they
just him attempting to tie himself to Crowley, in my opinion. But there's like pictures of him with her with Alexander's doing witchcraft stuff.
Do they spell Alexander with a Z?
No, it's Alexandrian, so it's like almost like the city, but it's Sanders is his last name. Maybe I have pictures of this here. I have a good video of Cold Bases, some of the stuff that Alex Sanders things. This is what he looked like. Again, you can probably just look him up, and the pictures of Tate and him are probably online. This is what he looked like. Gardner's a little different, but he has all the ritual stuff.
Crazy.
Let's see if I can find this.
Looks like a fun guy.
Yeah, there's some really creepy rituals that he filmed with like golden masks and torches and stuff. Really hardcore stuff. Yeah, here it is. Here he is. So let me see. So that's the guy, that's Sanders. And here is Tate with him. Magic circle, all the writings, all that stuff.
Yeah. And who's Moore? Moore.
Eye of the Devil, that's right. Moore, de Grimston's real name was Moore. It was
Robert de Grimston.
Yeah, Robert de Grimston's real name is Robert Moore.
He denied knowing de Grimston, but said he had met Moore. You're looking at him, Manson told me. Moore and I are one and the same.
Right.
What the hell, dude? How's he going to say he doesn't know de Grimston, but he knows Moore? He's the same person. It talks about just how Manson was involved with the Process Church for a while, and obviously that's kind of that connection with them. And I just don't think, I mean, dude, I think there's got to be a deeper connection with that. I just can't look past it. But I mean, obviously there isn't a super smoking gun, or else it would have been found by now. I mean, the best you get is just the locality of the things, you know.
Right. Here's another picture of her and Sanders from something. Sharon Tate, Sex Magic, and My Witch King. So there he is in the center, and I guess that's her somewhere. They have a lot of
some of the original newspapers did depict that she was involved in some of that stuff, and they got rid of it, if I recall right.
Yeah,
that she was involved.
There's allegations of a lot of that Polanski was filming stuff, and I think that the cops had the evidence, and I don't know what happened to that. Like, I don't really know.
Yeah. It's crazy. Well, you know, we're going to have less and less of this information as it goes on, because now, you know, Google's going to switch over to AI fully now. Did you see that? What the hell?
It'll all be like suppressed, man.
Talk about memory holing, right? You know, now
in the worst way. You got to have eventually what'll be interesting is that people's external hard drives and the information on their external hard drives will actually increase in value and become more important, because the information won't have been tampered by AI or somebody tinkering around. And I've already seen things happen, because a lot of the old pictures of Crowley have been tampered with or AI'd. And a lot of people don't know, because like I researched it before I'm so freaking old.
Right.
Like I researched the stuff before AI. And I'll actually bring up my book about the visual study of Crowley, and people can see the AI pictures, because I actually was watching a Candace Owens video, and she brought up this picture. I'm like, honey, this is AI. This looks similar. It looks like something like that, but it's not real. Like,
and that's the Dark Enlightenment right there. You know, that is the epitome of the Dark Enlightenment. When you read like what that is, we're getting information from a system that doesn't experience reality the way we do, It can't perform the scientific method based off senses and experiences to really know reality. It only processes data and information that's inputted by people who control it. And so therefore your mind is going to be inputted. Your reality is going to be completely controlled by the programmers of this AI, which would then lead to a dark enlightenment and negative enlightenment of the people. And that's exactly where we are today. And it's crazy to watch.
These are all the old original pictures of Crowley, so you can check it out visuals. It's only $5.
Oh, I love
Actually,
that
that's
you have that. That's awesome.
yeah. This is a
I'm getting
minor.
that. I'm getting that. I gotta get all the William Ramsey books on my shelf. I'm gonna stack up a whole one shelf for just your books. I
Yeah,
kind of did
everybody
that.
should do that. I think that's a great idea.
It's a good idea. I recommend it. No, I mean
Pay off my credit
you've got
cards.
amazing. I mean,
yeah, this was done 2012. So this is pre stuff. It's been out. I think it should say that. 2014 publication date. It was actually republished. That's why it says that. But these are going to be important. Keep all your stuff on your hard drives and get external hard drives. They're incentivizing people to use the cloud, and it's a huge mistake.
Yeah, AI is going to wipe out all the important knowledge and research that we haven't found out about yet, and that we have found out up until today, and just rebrand our whole understanding of our history and our reality. And that's the point. That's Mind Wars. It gets right into this whole series we've been doing. So,
amen. That's so true. Anybody have any questions before we wrap it up? We're definitely at the 90-minute mark. Anybody? Let me go back to these comments. Intermeyer Park, yeah, that's it. Douglas Dietrich, yeah, it's not nice things to say about Douglas Dietrich. Holy smokes. I don't know. I just don't know some of this stuff. Do you trust the FBI? No, I don't. I don't trust the FBI at all.
Henry Lucas. Yeah. Henry
Project
Lucas
Chaos,
stuff.
yeah, very good. Henry Lee Lucas, not his tool, members of the process. I've never proved that. Can you send me evidence of that? I've heard that Lucas was a member of the Black Hand, but maybe that's a subset of the process. I don't know.
I mean, dude, you know about his mom, right? Like what his mom did. You're going to be my slave. I'm going to make you my slave in the afterlife. She satanically abused him, and then he ended up killing her. And then George Bush, he's never pardoned anybody. He pardoned Henry Lee Lucas.
It's the only person he pardoned. Everybody else went to the death chamber. Yeah.
I mean, he's known for doing that. So how crazy? I mean, when you take that into consideration, and then he says himself that he was given the cyanide to go give to the compound at Jonestown. Come on, dude. That's crazy. And that's an MK Ultra study place. If you read into it more, it's not.
Yeah, it's a CIA front. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's another person who had some. Jim Jones had some kind of weird, like blessed life. Like he had weird people around him and CIA operatives. One of the guys' name was like, he's like a torturer, Mangione, who was connected to other people and sketchy people in South America. It was really weird. And he ended up dead. The other guy ended up dead. It's like horrible stuff. Actually did a thing about San Francisco. It was called City of Fear or something, but it was about Jim Jones and the death of Harvey Milk, I think. But it was also strange. The guy White was very strange, like mentally very strange. From the Vietnam War too.
Right in that time frame,
red flag. Hillside Strangler, I have not. Thanks everybody for listening. We had 200 live listeners. Thanks everybody, really appreciate it. Andrew, why don't you promote your stuff? I know I'll try to remember to put in your Discord server in the show notes.
Yeah, appreciate that.
6G Agenda podcast, right?
Yep, 6G Agenda. Everywhere you get your podcast, social media, wherever you want to go, you will find us at 6G Agenda. And we go live all the time. We're going live a few times this weekend, so you can catch us on YouTube for the newest and greatest episodes. We'll be live, and then free feed, of course, on all platforms. So thank you, William. I love doing shows with you. I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, till the next one. We can do a Coming Forth by Night. It's be worth my time to reread that.
Absolutely.
And also, I'm streaming now on Patreon, guys. You can check out my Patreon page. Streaming to Substack. I've got a Substack, and then 3 YouTube channels, X, Rumble, and then this audio will go back out to my audio, which I'm hosted at Spreaker right now, but it goes out to Spotify, Spreaker, anywhere else, iTunes that you listen to your podcast. So Thanks a lot for listening, and thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Thank you.